Alright, I'm pretty excited about tonight's episode 7 of Empty, written by Ruggles, okay? And if you are watching this and you are enjoying the other episodes 1 through 6, they are on my YouTube channel under the playlist of Empty podcast episodes. And you can get there and subscribe by typing in www.youtube.com/@EricRuggles. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so more people can hear my story. I do have other playlists on there with some more information about different things and different topics. But I appreciate any help or any support that I can get. And if you are enjoying this story right now, please tell others and have them join or subscribe to my channel. Tonight's episode 7, Through Creo's Grasp. All right, we're going to get to that in a second. But tonight is a first. I have my first sponsor, Cartersville Strength and Fitness. They are located here in Cartersville, Georgia at 790 West Avenue. Their number is 770-878-1203. And you can see they have a lot of fitness programs. CrossFit and personal training are some of them. And I happen to know a couple of the personal trainers personally, and they're very knowledgeable about fitness. They can help you shed the pounds that you want and get you in shape. So give them a call today, all right, and set up an appointment to get into one of those classes and get yourself into shape. So back to the episode 7, Through Creo's Grasp. Last episode, in episode 6, we found that Rayden was in detention, and his dad was coming to get him, already sent mom off to a safe place. His dad was waiting in the parking lot in his car. Rachel had been kidnapped by Darren, Jerry, and Rachel, the orphans that are in cahoots with Creo, in order to capture Rayden. So Creo tries to sneak up on Rayden's dad, Charles, and Charles sees him in the rearview mirror. So he gets out of his car and he's running towards the woods. And as he's running towards the woods, he shoots back a bolt of energy from his hand, trying to hit Creo, but he misses. And what he does hit is his car, and it causes a big explosion. So everybody turns their attention to this exploded car. They run to the windows and the detention center. Anybody that was in the parking lot, they're looking at this car that's gotten blown up. This does not bring any attention to Charles or Creo that are running away. They're almost to the edge of the woods when this happens. So basically, they're not seen. And that's why in the last chapter, I never really involved the police getting involved with the investigation. If they did, it would just be basically at the school. Nobody saw Creo or Charles running away from the car. The car was exploded. There was nothing really left of it, not even a license plate. There was no body to be found. So there really wasn't anything, and the case would probably been closed. All right, so we're going to pick up where we left off in chapter 6. And basically, Creo had caught up to Rayden's dad, Charles, knocked him out. Charles was unable to do another bolt because his body has to generate enough energy again, and that takes time. So he didn't have the time to generate that bolt, and Creo had caught up to him, knocked him out. So Creo's knocked him out. It's about 10 minutes later, and he saw Rachel tied to a chair and Darren, Jessica, and Jerry sitting at a table. We are now at Creo's cabin. He dropped Charles' legs onto the cabin floor, and he began to tie him up to restrain him. Rachel was squirming, and she was sitting there in the chair. She wanted to yell, she wanted to scream, but she knew no one would hear her. Creo says, "Listen, you little bitch. We will text your precious boyfriend and lead him to this cabin. That way I can end this chase that has consumed my life for years. Once he gets here, I will get the stone, crush it, so that his family, the last family of witches, will be gone. And there will be no more witchcraft from their family." Creo grabbed Rachel's phone and sent a heartwarming plea for help to Rayden. The text read, "Rayden, I have been taken against my will to a cabin in the woods by the football field. Go to the bleachers and head straight north, and you will eventually run into the cabin." A few seconds later, there was a ding on Rayden's phone. This caught his attention. He looked down at the phone and read the text and realized that Rachel was in trouble. And it was up to him to go to this cabin and end this chase. A few seconds later, he receives another text that said his father was being held captive at the cabin as well, and that he needed to come alone to the cabin and to bring the family stone if he wanted to see Rachel and his father alive. Rayden knew the woods well. It was the same woods that he would go in order to be alone and think. He did this from time to time, and he knew where the cabin was, but he never went near it out of respect to someone else's property. Little did he know that it was owned by the man who would eventually kidnap his father and girlfriend. Rayden had to think. He had to come up with a plan and not get killed. There was no clear advantage on his part by knowing the woods, because Creo knew the woods as well. The advantage was Creo's, because he had Rachel and his father tied up in the cabin. One mistake and Rachel may die. Hell, one mistake and they all might die. The only way to come out of this alive was to make sure the stone did not get destroyed. So Rayden texted back that he was on his way and he had the family stone. Rayden decided that he needed to scout the cabin first before going there as himself. So he transformed himself into a sparrow and flew towards the woods where the cabin was, as well as Rachel and his father. Remember, he is a shapeshifter. Rayden perched himself on a ledge of the window that faced directly in front of the cabin. All right? So, as he was perched, he veered into the cabin and saw Creo waiting patiently on him. He also saw Rachel tied up in a chair in the front room, and his father, or what he assumed was his father, wrapped in a tarp on the floor. Darren, Jerry, and Jessica were all outside the cabin waiting for Rayden to warn Creo when he was coming. Now that Rayden knew the layout, he had to come up with a plan to free Rachel and his father while not letting the stone get destroyed. Rayden looked around the cabin from the window to see if there was anything he could use to set his father free and gain the upper hand on Creo. There was his opportunity. On the counter was a set of steak knives. He could use his power to move the knives and cut the tarp and the ropes that bound his father. He would have to do it when Creo would be distracted and not paying attention to Rayden, setting his father free. Rayden's chance finally came. Creo yelled out to Jerry to come keep an eye on Rachel. Jerry came into the cabin and Creo proceeded to go to the bathroom. Like all kids, Jerry paid little attention to what was going on around him because he was on his phone messing around. This was the opportunity Rayden needed. So perched on the windowsill, Rayden used his telepathic powers to move one of the knives cautiously and slowly towards his father's wrapped body. He projected his thoughts into his father's mind, letting him know he was there and was working on freeing him by cutting his bonds with a knife. Rayden told his father to use his invisibility powers now as the knife was slowly torn away from the tarp from his body. The tarp was completely sliced and the knife began to cut through the rope binding his father's hands and feet. Finally, his father was free. Rayden told him, through his thoughts, to quickly throw off the tarp, run to the door, and keep running straight until he reached a clearing in the woods, and Rayden would meet him there. Suddenly, the tarp went flying, and his father ran to the door. Of course, he was unseen because he was invisible. Charles opened the door and ran to the clearing. Jerry started yelling, "What the hell's going on?" Creo came flying out of the bathroom and asked, "What is going on?" Jerry said, "The tarp just flew across the room, and the door opened, but I didn't see anyone at all." "No shit," exclaimed Creo. "He is a witch with invisibility powers." Creo then ran out the door to see if he could locate any trace of footsteps to find out which way Charles had gone to try and track him. Creo knew that Rayden must be near. If he could find the tracks of his dad, he would also find Rayden and the stone. As Creo was trying to locate Charles' tracks, Jerry screwed up again by following Creo outside without Creo knowing. Rayden saw his second chance and opportunity, so he transformed himself back into human form, opened the window, and he quickly climbed through the window and untied Rachel. And they both ran out the back door into the woods. Creo, while looking around, noticed Jerry was outside and that Rachel was unattended. "Jerry, you dumbass, who's watching Rachel?" Creo ran into the cabin as he figured Rachel was gone, without a trace. Creo was furious because this was his chance to capture the stone and crush it. In his anger, Creo blazed an energy source from his fingertips, and the bolt shot straight through Jerry's heart, killing him instantly. Jessica and Darren stood there in awe. They had just seen their friend blown up. They were in fear, and as they wondered, how did he do this? Creo began to explain. Creo, in his state of anger, began to scream and yell in frustration because he knew he had lost the perfect opportunity to gain Rayden's family power. Creo was a witch as well. Creo, the last of the hunters, was a warlock, and his plan was to help the hunters kill off all the witches, and he would use the resources of the hunters to track down witches and crush their stones. This would do two things: kill the witches and warlocks and give Creo one of their powers, being he was the warlock that killed them. It was written law that if a witch killed another witch, the killing witch or warlock would gain one of the dead witches or warlocks' powers. Creo knew that Rayden and Charles were the last of their kind, so no other witches existed. So if he crushed their stone, killing them, he would be gaining the power from each of them. So to be accurate, the hunters no longer existed, and Creo was on a mission to gain all the powers he could by killing the witches. The hunters had been extinct for years. Creo carried on the hunt just to gain his power. So when the last of the witches were dead, he would receive all the known powers and be the only remaining witch alive. Having immortality and keeping the secret of the stone unknown, he would use his powers for world domination. With immortality, he would need no offspring to carry out the witch existence, and he would live forever as the most powerful being in the world, unless, of course, his stone somehow would get destroyed. The secret would never get out, though, letting Creo live forever. As Creo explained this to Darren and Jessica, leaving out the destroyed stone part, of course, he let them know they could become rich if they would help him. Meanwhile, Rayden and Rachel made a large circle around and met up with Rayden's dad in the clearing. They decided not to chit-chat. And get out of there in case Creo was on their hunt after him. The three proceeded to leave the woods and head towards Rayden's car. Charles asked, "What's our next step, Rayden?" And that's going to be the next chapter. All right, chapter 8 is going to give you the details of their plan to try and end Creo's life, if they can. All right. If you are enjoying this story, please, again, tell people about my story. Let them know about the YouTube channel so that they can watch the first 6 episodes. Please tell them to subscribe. I do appreciate all the support I have gotten, people that have bought my book. It is on Amazon.com. It's Empty by Eric Ruggles. I appreciate those people, and I appreciate the people that have come up to me and talked to me about the podcast already. Thank you so much, and I look forward to giving you Chapter 8 next week.